correspondent for the Daily Caller that's looking for dog trainers to comment and explain what factors may be causing Commander to bite and have these incidents. So we're going to use that as our topic today, and we will let this phone call kind of dictate where today's episode goes. Here's Reagan now. Hello, this is David.
Hi, David. It's Reagan Reese.
Hi. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Not too shabby. What can I do for you?
Yeah, thanks for making time for me this morning.
Sure.
So this has kind of hit the news cycle pretty heavily that the second dog, Commander, who's 2 years old, a German Shepherd, has been removed from the White House. There's been reports that there were 11 biting incidences within the White House. In fact, moved. And now there's also additional reporting that we saw from CNN last night that the biting incidences might actually be more than what we know.
Sure.
And so I'm curious to know what you think might be contributing to these incidences. Why does a dog bite like this? Why move him from the White House?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if you want to start with what you think could be contributing to this.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of a couple of things. Like, obviously, first and foremost, we're dealing with a German Shepherd, and I'm assuming Biden is not getting poorly bred German Shepherds. I'm assuming he's getting very good, sound, stable German Shepherds, which historically are very challenging dogs, right? They are a one-person dog, meaning they attach very, very strongly to an individual. They need direct guidance from that person. They generally can be very untrusting of other people. And when you look at an environment like the White House, like that's probably the absolute least sound and stable environment you could probably provide for a dog like this, right? So that's going to be, I think, probably the biggest issue. I know his last dog, I forgot what the dog, Major or something like that. I know the last dog had similar issues, and a lot of people, I think, are looking at this from the lens of like, oh, what are they doing that's so bad that's causing these problems? When in actuality, they're probably not doing anything horrible aside from just the environment is not conducive to owning a dog like that. So they went from one dog that had the issues to another one, which is the same thing, that had the same exact issues. You know what I mean? So I think that's first and foremost the biggest problem. I know they've done training, right? I believe they've sent the dog out somewhere for training, and then the other side of the conversation is people are saying, well, that person didn't do a good enough job with the training, which I would disagree. Training is generally not just for the dog; it's for the owner to understand what the dog needs from them in order to be successful. And again, all this entire recipe of things going on is just not conducive to keeping this dog successful. Like a lot of the things they would need to be coached to do as far as management techniques, training techniques, things like that, I don't think they would be able to physically do in that environment. So I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah. Going off of that kind of training aspect, and I agree with the stressful environment. I imagine that's part of it. I do know, past presidents have had dogs, and I don't think we've seen something like this before.
Sure.
But in terms of the training,
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that this dog doesn't have like a strong owner or a strong leader that is affecting this, is causing it to kind of lash out and be, I guess, reckless?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you brought up, past presidents have had dogs and haven't had incidents like this. That's where you get into the breed issue, right? I don't know, obviously, all the breeds of all the presidents down the line. And, I'm sure there may have been one or two German Shepherds in the White House before that have been fine. But, it really is a breed thing. And they are going to need something more than your average dog from the standpoint of like a strong individual person. That is the handler, right? And I would assume that, different helpers or workers are the ones that are primarily caring for the dogs that are there. And in the end of the day, anytime you have a dog like this and their actual owner isn't the one that's actively probably involved in the day-to-day training of the dog, it creates a lot of confusion, right? Because they bond very closely with one individual, let's say the Biden family, but then you have this random person that's trying to enforce all of the rules and boundaries, which just creates a ton of stress. So I think that's probably a lot of it. It probably is lacking some direction and lacking some good leadership, but I don't know how conducive that would be, like I said, given the environment that he's in, for it to be successful with this individual dog.
Yeah. And also also in terms of the stressful environment, do you think are there specific triggers in a stressful environment cause a dog like this to freak out? I know there's been reports that the president, and again, I don't know how much he's around the president, but for example, the president there's reports that he kind of loses his temper and screams, and I imagine can be conducive with other White House officials as well. Could that cause the shepherd to go off?
Potentially, right? And I want to be clear also, I don't necessarily think it's a stressful environment thing that's causing the issues. I think it's just an inconsistent environment that's causing these types of issues, right? So just, there's probably not consistent routines that are happening day to day, right? The expectation of the dog is probably going to be different from a day-to-day basis. He's probably going to be being handled by different people on a day-to-day basis that are probably enforcing things in different ways, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that could just cause confusion, not so much that it's like, people are yelling and screaming and causing triggers and stuff like that. I think it's more the inconsistency, because dogs are creatures of habit and predictability, right? And the more predictable we can make their life, and the more we could then give clear direction in unpredictable situations, the more they're going to be successful. And like I said, when there's multiple people handling the dog all the time, that's very, very difficult to achieve, especially with a difficult dog like a German Shepherd.
Yeah, so sending the dog to a different location and probably having it be handled by one individual who can be firm with the dog is the solution here, and it is what we're seeing the White House do, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I really think, in these types of situations, there's not really an amount of training that you're necessarily going to do that's going to make the dog just fine in that environment, because training isn't this thing you put on a dog and then they're trained and they just don't bite people anymore and they handle situations better. Training really is a communication system that both parties need to know equally in order to guide a dog's behavior, right? So yeah, removing the dog, sending the dog to, whether an individual or a family somewhere that's going to be able to have one handler that's working with the dog all the time, be able to provide very clear sound direction for that dog, and be able to have the routines be much more consistent when he's currently providing is going to be, the solution for success in this case. And I think, unfortunately, the Biden family is just going to have to learn that this type of dog, if they want to have a dog in the White House, is just not going to be probably a good fit for the family,
Yeah. And then just the severity of 11 reported bites. Is that concerning and alarming to you?
Yes. 11 bites is a lot of bites. I think I saw, I don't remember if it was Joe Rogan or something posted about it and said, just imagine if your dog bit 11 Secret Service offers, and what would happen. And that would be a very big deal. And even if your dog just bit 11 people in general, that's a very big deal, obviously. Now, we don't really know any information as far as the severity of those bites, what happened, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to be able to say how concerning it is. I'm assuming the dog did not maul 11 people where they're completely destroyed from this incident, especially with a young dog. It's probably, 11 just standard bites that would happen, that are just constantly getting checked on the list. And yeah, that's obviously concerning, but, we would need to know more about the bites in order to say, how would we help it? How would we prevent it from happening again? Is it a situation where a lot of people go to, wow, 11 bites, we should just put the dog down, right? But without knowing all the incidents, I could have my dogs in 11 stupid situations, right? Or 11 situations with zero guidance and have them bite 11 people, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad dogs. That might just mean that I put them in 11 stupid situations and can easily prevent that moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, great. Is there anything else you'd like to add or emphasize you don't think I touched on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a pretty cut and dry situation. Like I said, I really don't think this is a matter of bad ownership or bad training necessarily. I think this is a matter of just bad recipe of dog and situation. I think that's really the key here.